My sister was the one who drove drunk and hit the neighbor's fence. I was the one who ended up holding the keys when the police arrived. They never thought I'd still have the security footage from 3 weeks before. The smell of antifreeze and cut grass hit me before I even got out of the car. It was a Tuesday evening in late September, the kind where the air goes golden right before it goes dark, and I was pulling into our parents' driveway after a double shift at the hospital where I worked as a billing coordinator. My feet hurt. My back hurt. I had a lukewarm coffee in my cup holder that I'd been nursing since 2 in the afternoon. That's when I heard it, a crunch, then a scrape, then silence. I turned off my engine and sat there for a second, thinking I'd imagined it. Then I looked in my rearview mirror and saw my sister's car, the white Civic our parents had bought her for graduation, sitting at a 45-degree angle with its front bumper buried in the Kellerman cedar fence next door. The wooden post was snapped clean through. One of their garden lights was crushed under the tire, still flickering. My sister was still in the driver's seat. I got out. I walked over slowly, the way you walk towards something you already know is bad. When I knocked on her window, she rolled it down and the smell came out first. Sweet, thick, vodka sour underneath something fruity. Her eyes were glassy, the kind of glassy that isn't tired, it's somewhere else entirely. She looked at me and she said, it came out of nowhere. The fence, I assume she meant, which had been exactly where it had been for the past 11 years. Evie, I said, you need to get out of the car. She didn't move. She gripped the steering wheel with both hands and stared through the windshield at the damage like she was watching something on TV that didn't involve her. I heard the screen door open behind me, then my mother's voice. She didn't say, "Are you hurt?" She didn't say, "Oh my God." She said in the low-controlled tone she used when she was managing a situation rather than experiencing it, "How bad is the car?" My father was 2 steps behind her. He assessed the scene the way he assessed everything, quickly, silently, already making calculations. He walked past me without a word, opened the driver's door, and helped my sister out. She stumbled once. He caught her arm. "Go inside," he told her. "Drink some water. Don't say anything." She went. He closed the car door and turned to look at me. Then at the fence, then back at me. "You're sober," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. You work at Mercy General. You're a responsible adult. You have no record." I already felt the air shifting, the way it shifts before a storm even when the sky still looks clear. "Dad, the Kellermans are going to call it in," my mother said. She was standing by the bumper, arms crossed, already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Their lights are on." They heard it. "This is a DUI," my father said. "If Evie gets a DUI, she loses her nursing license before she even gets it. She's 3 months from graduation. 3 months." He said it like those 3 months were sacred, like they absolved everything that came before them. "She was driving," I said. "Nadia. That was my name." He said it the way he said it when I was 8 and I'd done something disappointing. "You have a stable job. You have a clean record. A misdemeanor reckless driving charge for you is a fine and a traffic school class. For her, it is the end of everything we have invested in her future." "I want to tell you," I said no immediately, that I laughed in his face and walked inside. But if you've grown up in a family where one child is the investment and one child is the support structure, you understand the particular paralysis that comes with being looked at like the practical one, the sensible one, the one who can absorb the hit. My mother touched my arm. "Be her big sister," she said. "You've always been the strong one." The Kellerman's porch light came on. I heard myself say, "Fine." What happened next was quick and mechanical and humiliating in a way I still don't entirely know how to describe. My father moved my car forward so it wasn't blocking the street. My mother went inside to make sure my sister was out of sight. When the Kellerman's door opened and their son walked out, he was about 17, looking confused and holding a phone. My father said very calmly, "My daughter just had a little accident with your fence son. She's right here. We'll take care of everything." He gestured to me. I was standing next to my sister's car, keys in my hand, feeling like I was watching myself from outside my own body. The police arrived 12 minutes later. 2 officers. I gave them my name, my license, my insurance. I said I'd misjudged the distance backing up. I said I hadn't been drinking. One of them asked me to do a field sobriety test, which I passed obviously because I was completely sober. He frowned at that, made a note, asked if I'd had anything to drink at all. I said no. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he wrote down what I told him. My father shook both officers' hands, said he'd personally call the Kellermans in the morning to arrange payment for the fence. Very community-minded, very neighborly. The officers left. I went inside. My sister was in the kitchen drinking a glass of water. When I walked in, she looked up with this expression that I think she meant to be grateful, but landed somewhere closer to relieved, which is a different thing. Relief is about yourself. "Thank you," she said. I didn't respond. I went upstairs and sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the carpet for a while. The next morning, my parents informed me that I would need to attend a court date in 6 weeks for the reckless driving citation. My father had already spoken to a family friend who was an attorney. The plan was to plead no contest, pay the fine, take the online driving course. He made it sound like scheduling a dentist appointment. "It won't affect your job," my mother said. We checked. Hospital billing coordinators don't have the same licensing requirements as nurses. I noticed she did not say thank you. I noticed she said we checked, meaning she had already researched how to minimize the inconvenience to herself before I had even agreed. My sister avoided me for the first week. Then she started acting normal, the way people act normal when they've decided the uncomfortable thing is behind them. She texted me about a show she was watching. She asked to borrow my sweater. My parents settled back into their regular rhythms. My mother's book club, my father's Wednesday golf game, and the whole incident seemed to recede into the past, the way unpleasant things do in families that prefer surface smoothness to honesty. Nobody asked how I was doing. 3 weeks after the accident, I was cleaning out my home office. I worked remotely part of the week and had a desk set up in my second bedroom when I knocked a power strip off the back of the desk. When I crouched down to plug everything back in, I noticed the small device mounted in the corner of the room above my bookshelf. The one I'd completely forgotten about. 6 months earlier, there had been a string of package thefts in our neighborhood. 3 of my neighbors had gotten hit, 2 of them twice. I'd ordered a home security camera system, the kind that covers multiple rooms and syncs everything to cloud storage. I put cameras at the front door, the back door, the driveway, and, because the installer suggested it, one in the home office pointed at the window that faced the street. It faced the driveway too. Not directly, not head-on, but from that second-floor angle at that field of view, it would have captured exactly what happened in our driveway on that Tuesday evening. My hands went cold. I sat down on the floor next to my desk and opened my laptop and logged into the security app. I went to the events log. September 23rd. The motion detection had flagged 3 events that evening. The first was me pulling in at 6:42 p.m. The second was my sister's car at 6:48 p.m., moving at an angle it shouldn't have been, making contact with the fence. The third was the most important one. It was 12 minutes long. It showed the whole driveway, the whole choreography. My father walking past me to reach my sister first. My sister going inside. My father moving my car. My mother closing the front door. And me, standing there in my work clothes, being handed a set of keys and a story, visible and recorded from above in clear, timestamp stamped, motion-triggered detail. The audio wasn't great from that distance, but one part was clear. My father's voice when he said to the Kellerman kid, "My daughter just had a little accident. She's right here." And then the camera caught him step aside and gesture toward me. I sat there on the floor of my office for a long time. I thought about the court date, 38 days away. I thought about what pleading no contest meant, a mark on my driving record, a fine somewhere between $300 and $1,000, 8 hours of my life watching traffic safety videos. I thought about how my parents had framed this as a minor inconvenience. Then I thought about the Kellermans, who were decent people who'd done nothing wrong, whose fence was destroyed, who deserved to know the truth about what happened in their neighbor's driveway. I thought about the police officer who had looked at me for that long extra second, who knew something was off. I didn't do anything with the footage that night, but I backed it up. I backed it up to an external hard drive to a second cloud account under my work email, and I forwarded the key timestamps to my personal Gmail with a message to myself that just said, "Saved." Then I went to sleep. Over the next few weeks, I watched my family behave as though I had simply done a normal thing, a favor, something that balanced out years of borrowing my clothes and using my Netflix login. My sister posted a nursing school photo on Instagram with the caption, "Almost there," and got 400 likes. My parents shared it. Nobody tagged me. What finally broke it wasn't a dramatic moment. It was a Sunday afternoon, about 10 days before the court date, when I was at my parents' house for dinner. My father was telling a story about a colleague who'd gotten caught speeding, and my sister laughed and said, "At least Nadia's the reckless driver in this family, not you." She said it like a joke. She was looking at her phone when she said it. I set my fork down. "What did you say?" She looked up. She registered my face and had the grace to look briefly uncertain. I want to hear you say it again." My mother said, "Girls." I heard what she said. I looked at my mother, then at my father. "I'm not doing it." My father put down his glass. "Nadia, I'm not pleading no contest. I'm not paying a fine for something I didn't do. I'm going to the court date and I'm telling them what actually happened." "You've already given a statement," my father said. "If you change your story now, you're looking at obstruction. You're looking at filing a false report. You have more to lose now than you did before." "I have evidence," I said. The table went quiet. My mother's expression shifted in a way I'd only seen a few times in my life, a quick recalculation, like a door shutting behind her eyes. "What evidence?" my father said. "Security camera mounted in my office window, faces the driveway. I have 12 minutes of footage from that night." Nobody spoke. "It shows Evie's car making contact with the fence. It shows you walking past me to get to her first. It shows her going inside. It shows you moving my car. And it shows you standing next to me when you pointed at me in front of the Kellerman kid and told him I was the one." My sister made a sound that wasn't quite a word. My father's jaw tightened. "That footage was taken on private property? You can't just." "I can submit it as evidence in my own defense," I said. I didn't actually know this for certain, but I knew enough to know that it wasn't as simple as him telling me I couldn't. "You would do this to your sister," my mother said. Her voice had shifted into the registers she used when she wanted me to feel guilty, soft, and slightly wounded, as though I were the one causing harm. "I would do this for myself," I said. "I left before dessert. My father called me 4 times that night. I let them all go to voicemail. My mother texted, 'We need to talk before you do something you can't take back.' My sister didn't contact me at all. I spent that evening on the phone with a real attorney. One I'd found myself, not a family friend. Her name was Ms. Pacheco, and she was a criminal defense attorney who'd handled similar cases. I described the situation. She asked several questions. She was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she said, "You have the footage backed up in multiple locations." 3, I said. "Good. Here's what we're going to do." What we did was this. Ms. Pacheco filed a motion to present new evidence. She notified the court that I would be entering a not guilty plea and submitted a summary of the video footage and the circumstances under which it was obtained. She also sent a formal letter to the prosecuting office noting that the footage potentially implicated another party in the original incident, along with 2 witnesses, the Kellerman son and the responding officers, who could speak to the discrepancies in the original statement. I didn't tell my family any of this. The night before the court date, my father showed up in my apartment. He didn't call first. I heard the knock and looked through the peephole and stood there for a moment, and then I opened the door because I was tired of being someone who stood behind closed things. He looked older than I'd seen him look in a long time. He was wearing a jacket, the dark one he wore to important things, which meant he'd come here with some kind of prepared intention. "Just hear me out," he said. I stepped aside and let him in. We stood in my kitchen. I didn't offer him anything. "Evie is taking a leave from the nursing program," he said. "She's going to defer her start date. We'll get her into a counseling program. We'll handle this privately. But if you go into that courtroom tomorrow and submit that footage, she will be criminally charged. Her life will." She should have thought about that before she got in the car, I said. Nadia, you're her sister. I'm aware. I looked at him. I'm also a person. I'm the person who stood in that driveway and told the police I was responsible for something I didn't do because you handed me her keys and pointed at me and said, be the strong one. And for 3 weeks, nobody in this family, not once, asked whether I was okay with it or thanked me or acknowledged that I had done something I should never have been asked to do. He opened his mouth. I'm not asking you to agree with me, I said. I'm telling you that I'm going tomorrow and I'm going to tell the truth and I need you to leave now so I can sleep. He stood there for a moment. Then he left. I slept better than I had in weeks. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, beige and fluorescent, the kind of room that makes everything feel equally mundane. Ms. Pacheco was calm and precise in the way that good attorneys are, prepared for each thing before it happened. My parents were in the gallery. My sister was not. The responding officer was present as a witness for the original citation. When the judge asked how I intended to plead, Ms. Pacheco stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. My client has new evidence she'd like to submit. The footage played on a screen at the front of the room, all 12 minutes of it. The driveway, the angle, every gesture. I watched the officer who had written the original report. He watched the screen. When the part played where my father stepped aside and directed the Kellerman kid's attention to me, the officer sat very still. When it ended, the judge looked at the prosecuting attorney. The prosecuting attorney looked at his notes. He looked at my father in the gallery. He asked for a recess. During the recess, Miss Pacheco and I stood in the hallway. Through the courtroom door, I could hear my father's voice, controlled and tight, talking to someone. I stared at the water fountain across from me and thought about nothing in particular. When we went back in, the prosecuting attorney spoke first. He stated that, in light of new evidence, the charge against me was being dropped. He further noted that the footage had been forwarded to the appropriate investigative unit for review of potential additional charges against the original party. Case dismissed. I sat there for a second after the judge said it. Just a second. Then I picked up my bag and walked out. My parents didn't follow me into the hallway. I don't know what they did. Miss Pacheco shook my hand and told me I'd done well, that the secondary investigation would take some time, but that the footage was thorough. I thanked her. I paid her invoice standing on the courthouse steps in the October sunshine. My sister called me 2 days later. She said she was sorry. She said it the way people say it when they mean it about 40% and are managing their own feelings about the remaining 60. I told her I heard her. I didn't tell her it was okay, because it wasn't. I told her I hoped the counseling helped. She cried a little. I listened. I didn't cry. I'd already done that, in the weeks before, privately, in ways nobody in my family had noticed or asked about. 3 weeks after the court date, I received a letter from my insurance company. The Kellermans had filed a claim for the fence through my parents' homeowner's policy. My father had apparently followed Drew on his promise to cover the repair, possibly in an attempt at damage control before the investigation caught up with him. The letter confirmed that the claim was in process and that I was not a listed party. A week after that, I received a different kind of letter, from the Kellermans directly. Mr. Kellerman had heard through the neighborhood what had actually happened. He wrote 3 sentences. He said he was sorry I'd been put in that position. He said he appreciated that I'd eventually told the truth. He said the fence looked better than the original anyway. I put the letter on my refrigerator. I still haven't been back to my parents' house for dinner. Maybe I will, eventually. Families are long, complicated things, and I haven't closed any doors permanently, but I've stopped holding them open for people who walk through them looking for something to use. The security camera is still mounted in my office window. I almost took it down after everything. Then I thought about how I'd felt on that floor, the day I found the footage. That cold, flooded with possibility feeling of realizing you had been witnessed even when you thought you hadn't. I decided to leave it up. Some things are worth keeping exactly where they are. I've thought a lot about the moment I said fine. Standing in the driveway, my father's hand still gestured toward me, the Kellerman kid looking at me with the phone in his hand, the fence still splintered in the dark. I said fine, and I meant it to be temporary, the way you mean a lot of things to be temporary when you're tired and someone you love is applying pressure and the easy path is right there in front of you. What I didn't understand then, what took me weeks of sitting in my own silence to understand, is that fine is never temporary. Every time you absorb something that wasn't yours to carry, it becomes part of the weight you walk around with. And eventually, the weight becomes the story other people tell about you. The reliable one, the strong one, the one who handles it. My father believed he was protecting Evie. I don't think he's a monster. I think he made a calculation the way people make calculations when they're afraid, and I was the variable he decided could afford to be moved. That's the part that stayed with me longest. Not that he asked, but that he looked at me and saw someone whose life was adjustable, whose future had enough flex in it to absorb someone else's mistake without permanent damage. What he didn't account for was that I had been watching, quietly, for years, and that at some point a person who has been asked to be flexible one too many times stops bending and starts deciding. I don't think Evie is a bad person either. I think she got into a car when she shouldn't have, and then she let the consequences land somewhere else because the door was open and she walked through it. That's a different kind of failure than malice. It's the failure of never having been required to stand in the place where your choices land. When nothing has ever truly cost you anything, you lose the muscle for accountability. It atrophies. You don't even notice it's gone until someone stops catching your fall. What I keep coming back to is the camera, that small device I'd installed 6 months earlier and completely forgotten about. I think about what would have happened if I'd never found the footage. I probably would have pleaded no contest, paid the fine, gone home, told myself it was a one-time thing, a family emergency, a sacrifice. And my family would have agreed with that framing, reinforced it, and filed it away as evidence that I could be counted on to do the hard thing quietly. Instead, I found it, and I had to make a choice about what to do with what I knew. That choice, not the camera, not the court date, not the case being dismissed, is the thing I'm actually proud of, because it would have been easier not to use it. It genuinely would have been easier to protect the peace, protect my sister's license, protect the version of our family that existed on the surface. Easier to keep being the one who handles it. But easier is not the same as right, and comfortable is not the same as okay. I learned that you don't prove your worth to people by absorbing their consequences. You prove your character by refusing to. There's a difference between being loyal to someone and being willing to disappear for them. Love doesn't require you to make yourself smaller. It doesn't ask you to hold a record you didn't earn so someone else can walk clean. The security camera is still in my window. I leave it there as a reminder, not of what happened, but of the fact that I was a witness to my own life even when I thought no one was watching. That's the thing I want to hold on to. Not the verdict, not the footage, not any of it. Just the knowledge that when it mattered, I showed up for myself the same way I'd spent years showing up for everyone else. That's the only story I want to keep telling.